Hi everybody, it's your buddy Brad here, and today we are going to be taking a look at the displacement variation in JWildfire. Um, it kind of displaces a image on the X and Y plane. This is not a 3D variation. It does have a It does have a offset Z, but haven't figured out how to show that effect. Um, it comes with uh, 3 modes, um, which I will get into, and basically I am going to be using 2 displace maps that I used. One here is just a black background with 3 squares. I have it here. And even though I'm using black and white or grayscaled images, you actually don't need to use them because I think that it actually breaks down the color data um, into its black and white parts. So internally it takes a colored image and breaks it into a black and white image or a grayscaled image internally. But for these demonstrations, I will be using grayscaled images. And you can actually make your own uh, grayscaled images quite easily. Like, for example, here, I just have a simple carpet setup with a gradient. But if I wanted to make it a grayscaled, you just click on the gradient tab, come down here to modify gradient. I'm sorry, come down here to balancing. And under the saturation here, if you move that all the way down, bam, you have a grayscaled gradient that you can, it actually does, that you can use for using displacements. So if I randomize it some, you can get the idea. And of course, on normal like 3D displacement, black is like on the bottom and white would be the very top of a displacement. But on this, since it's 2D, it operates on how far it morphs on the X or Y axis. So, excuse me. To just show you an example here, I'm actually going to go ahead and get another colored background. And here, I will load my colored square. And I have it on the first linear. I'm going to first set the mode to 0. Now I've adjusted the scale some here. And as you can see, I have tile on X and Y. If you only have it on X, it only tiles in the X direction, and vice versa. If I only have it on Y, it only tiles on the Y plane. And the reason I have it scaled down was because for me, it was too big. But you can adjust the scale, and that affects the scale of the image. And you also have to use it with another variation. You can either have it on regular or as post. And it does have different effects when you use it in either way. But for here, I have it on the first linear on post, and you can get a good idea of how it is looking. So if I only want to see one image, you can see where it is only showing like here, and of course it's iterating other places, but actually I guess it would be in this, up in this corner. So if you take a look at the modes, the first mode, I'm going to turn back on tiling. The first mode, it displaces in a circular motion. So if you have this at 0, you can see how it is rotating it around in a circular motion. So if we move this some, then we can adjust the bias, which when you change the amount, it is changing the image part. When you change the bias, I think it is actually changing the like the part that it is working off of. So here it's basically like rotating the linear. And if you set it back, you can actually see the effect again, that it just cancels it out. And then mode 1, if we take a look here. So these are the modes here. If you look on the GitHub, mode 0 is rotate, mode 1 is translate, mode 2 is scale, and mode 3 is scissor. Scissor is a little confusing because it actually cuts in like a cross. So we're going to look at the next mode 1 for translate. And you really want to use the amount in small amounts. Sometimes because or else it can get too crazy. But again, if you want that type of effect, that's okay too. I find if you just use a little bit of it, it works much better. So I'm actually going to zoom in here. I'm going to concentrate on this upper right square. So you see we have our outer square and our inner square. And so since if we look at our, can I get rid of it? There it is. If you look at our image, it looks kind of like this is above this part because this part is darker than this part. And then this one's a little bit lighter than this part. That is why it is showing kind of the effect. But remember, it looks 3D, but it is kind of, I guess, pseudo 3D. So again, just use it in small amounts. So this is mode 1. Then go to mode 2. Then it kind of scales along in a different way. Actually, I think it scales the displacement image. Yeah, because I see now. So basically it's taking the image, and here if I increase it, it's actually making it smaller. And so then if we set it back to 0 and come the other way, it's actually scaling and making the displacement part bigger. So it's working kind of inverse of how you would think. You would think that the higher number would make it bigger, but it makes it smaller. So I'm increasing and it gets smaller. I'm increasing. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm decreasing and it's getting bigger. And set it to 0 again. No effect. Next is the scissor. And as you see, well, first off, just leaves us with a dot. Then if we increase the amount, now you see it really does a really funky thing where it is actually cutting it across. It's probably my least used because it just morphs in a strange way. And I think only the bias only works on mode 0 and 2. Here, if we change the bias, we don't see any effect. But if we go back to 0, and change the bias on mode 2, you can get an effect from it. On mode 1, is not really giving us the effect either. But then mode 0 it offers an effect. Just something to keep in mind. And of course, the way I really don't know if I covered it yet, but I think I did. But the way you load an image is you just click on the gear icon, and then you can pick any image you want. So if I select this one, and actually I like to use mode 1. That's the one I use the most. I'm actually going to get rid of the tile and increase the scale of it. Then if you zoom out here, let's say if I wanted this to fill like this whole square here, we might have to adjust the offset X and Y. So if you move it here, adjust here, and increase the scale more. Yeah, there we go. And so this is the image I am using as the displacement map. And then of course if we increase the amount more, then things can get really freaky. But this could be also used to get a painted fractal look very easily, especially if you have something underneath, and that would work. Because in a way it could mimic brush strokes. And then color mode, if you look at the GitHub, what it says is the color mode 0, it ignores color mode. 1, it inherits. And honestly, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I have found that if you change it to 0 or color mode to 1, it actually blacks out the image. But yet, if we zoom out, you can still see that it's affecting the other 3 squares. But if we, let's see, what did I do? Okay, well, I'm going to remove the displacement. What I think I did is that if you link to one, then choose the displacement, choose an image, and set mode 1. Then if you change color mode, well, for some reason it worked for me before, it's not working now. Not sure what I am doing wrong. So out of all the variables, this one is, at least for me, um, a little confusing. But if you want it to affect something else but not be seen, I guess that is when you could use it. If that makes sense. And it can be seen a little bit, but you get the idea. And you can also use it as a final. I'm just going to reset here. Reset this. We add a final. Remember, you need to have a variation for it to work with. So if I, so if you just select it as its own variation, even though as a final, you just get a dot. Even if you select an image, you just get a dot. So that's important to remember. But then if I come down here, select a linear, then you see we have, it's affecting the whole image. Mode 1, mode 2, woo, cool. And they should be getting some effect. Maybe it's because, yeah, that's why. So if linear is on top, you don't need to have it, or having a, have it as post. And then if we try a different image, you can get the effect. Okay, now I change, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, see, color mode, nothing. It totally wipes out your image because it's not interacting with anything else. So as a final, color mode does not work. Then you can increase the scale. Change, actually move it around using the offsets. So it gives you just an idea of what you can do. And again, like I said, if you change pitch, '90. none of the modes, as you see, it is not a 3D variation, or else you would be able to see stuff. So I think that about covers it. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Until later, bye.